Hello, dear friends. Here we are, Kardec Radio at 11 p.m. Yes, nourishing all of our souls together with another study on the book Evolution into Worlds, a book that is a phenomenon in itself. Oh, yes, a book that was written in 6 months, that was psychographed by two different mediums in two different cities, that compiles the information from the angles of science, philosophy, and religion, and still is at the vanguard of humanity. There are several scientists who have been studying the correlations of the revelations brought up by Luiz and how later science came to validate it, unconsciously speaking, right? But as we know, there's much more in this book that is yet to be unfolded and validated by science. But this book has 60 years on Earth, materialized on Earth, and yet it has never been debunked, which is a phenomenon in itself, right? So it makes us pay attention to what it is, use our own reasoning, and move forward, right? So that's what this book is all about, is to make us understand about who we are, not only for today, but for immortality. Yes, it's a coaching system to make us feel immortal. We are now working on a new chapter, which is chapter 11 of part 2. Part 2 of this book contains 20 chapters, and we're past half of this second part. And today we're talking about affective conduct. I'll put a pause. In chapter 8, we were studying about marriage and divorce. In chapter 10, we were studying about affective discipline. And in chapter 11, we're talking about affective conduct. Why is Luiz paying so much attention to it all? We said it yesterday, focusing on us mastering relationships, our relationship with God, our relationship with our physical and spiritual selves, the self as well, relationship with our brothers and sisters in nature, in all the different kingdoms. We haven't mastered yet, but he brings to us that awareness. But in the last two chapters, he focuses in one component, the affective component. And you may be asking, what is this all about? We said it yesterday that affective and affection, affect, is a term that was coined by psychology, borrowed by neuroscience, and also intersects with the spiritist term affection and affect. And it talks about this feature about emotions, feelings, how we process it. So he has been talking about in higher planes. Lately, Luiz is teaching us something that is unforeseen in many ways. On earth, to be established at more ordinary levels. But that's our goal in the long run of life, to aim higher emotionally speaking. We're talking about emotional intelligence. We don't want to minimize it, but that's the direction of it all. Today, in chapter 11, he's talking about affective conduct. You see how Spiritism, unlike other studies on mediumship, spirituality, they sometimes don't talk about this line of conduct. We talk about this morality. Some people have true aversions for it. Oh, please don't talk about it, because I want to be free, free thinker, free everything, free even in regards to conduct. But in Spiritism, we learn that there is no way to move forward without the wings of our moral life coming together. The intellect is one wing of evolution. The other one is moral, ethical moral. We need to use both to move, fly high, and ascend. Many people have the knowledge, but it hasn't sunk yet to the heart. Some people have the heart, but have not expanded their vision. We need to boost both. Experience and knowledge, knowledge and experience combined, making us move forward. We need to challenge our intellect, always learning something new. If you ask, how do I challenge my knowledge? By opening yourself to learning what you don't know. Anything you don't know, learn about it. Why not? Easy shortcut? I'll give you a shortcut. Tip, TED Ed, TED dash ED, TED Education. The TED Talks, it's like TED clips in 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes that summarize about the most current scientific advancements. Curiosity sometimes, but it's very interesting. It's good to absorb the new. Just like children, you go to school and everything's new and you're open, open, open. If we block that openness, we stagnate. And today, in our God at Home, Carlos and I were reading a passage, I forgot the chapter, but from the book, Living Spring, that talks about destruction and misery. And Emmanuel strikingly teaches us that when you stagnate, when I stagnate, I am creating problems for others. So we cannot stagnate. Okay? It's vital for us to move forward and opening our, expanding, as André Luiz says throughout the book Evolution into Worlds, expanding knowledge and experience, always for the better. Safe, healthful, okay? Back to our study for tonight. Affection. Thank you, Sunshine. We are going to go back to the very topic, affective conduct, chapter 11. When we talk about affective conduct, a synonym would be emotional conduct. And when we say emotional, it's about how we deal with our feelings, how we react to others. When we talk about emotional conduct, we are talking about emotional intelligence. Of course, André Luiz didn't use that term in emotional intelligence because it wasn't coined in science yet. But interesting enough, he kept himself ever more academic and scientific because to date, in psychology and especially in neuroscience, we use that term affect, affection, affective as scientific terms. So it's amazing for us as scientists in the field to see how André Luiz in 1958 was already ahead of all the sciences in that regard, using terms that are quite academic. So, quite interesting. But what does he have to do with us? Because this is not knowledge for knowledge. Let me go to the slides and let us rejoice because the study is so beautiful. Remember when he says in the preface, this study is also to ignite the fire of our hope in our ascension to God. I think this is one of the chapters in which he ignites that fire of hope. Shall we see it? Let's go. He says, affective conduct. He begins with a question. What is the affective behavior between noble souls? He's talking about the attitude, the conduct. How do noble souls behave in regards to their emotion? So here is André Luiz coaching us to a new paradigm, the paradigm of higher evolution. Let us not forget that in science, and this is the knowledge that I bring to you, so we differentiate. In science, we have these domains of character, and we have the intellect that we call the cognitive, the behavior, habits, and the affective. So it's very interesting because André Luiz, in a way, he's telling us about this emotional conduct, this affective behavior. Quite interesting. He begins by talking about inner discipline. The beginning of the chapter says, the higher the degree of improvement of the soul, the more the soul will ask spontaneously of herself in the necessary discipline of energies for in the affective realm. So the higher we are in our evolution, the more we discipline ourselves. The more we discipline ourselves. So for us, it's interesting because when André Luiz says that, usually people think otherwise. The higher evolve, the freer I become. Yes, freer in the sense of free from addictions, free from prejudices, but more disciplined. More, and when I say disciplined, and when he uses this term, we're talking about self-management. So, is it worthwhile investing in our awareness, spiritual, emotional, physical awareness? There are many people who are incarnated, are very spiritual. They're very, very spiritual. They seem to be very spiritual. They forget that they are connected to a physical body. This physical body here needs our attention. So, homework for us. How much time do you spend taking care of your body? Usually, we feel guilty, right? When we take care of our physical body. We're not talking about vanity. We're not talking about indulgence. We're talking about real care. Every day, what do we need to do? Hygiene. We cannot skip our hygiene, right? That's like a self-care. Nourishment. We need to learn how to nourish ourselves accordingly to our needs. Each person has a particular need, different foods, etc. Rest. We need to rest. But I need to work. Well, but your body needs to rest. Learning how to take breaks during the day, naps, short naps, and we would give a tip. The virtual passes that Cardiac Radio recorded, and it's in our website, cardiacradio.com. You're going to find in podcasts. There you're going to find an opportunity, daily opportunity, 10 minutes a day. Some people are extenuated at the end of the day because they haven't learned how to put a pause. But I don't have a space. Well, shut down the door of your office. Oh, you don't have an office? Go to the bathroom. Lock yourself in your own way. You can be standing if you don't want to sit. And breathe in deeply and out slowly. And visualize. And you can even stand there for 10 minutes or less listening to the virtual passes to recharge. You can be standing, seated, laying down. Recharge. Why? Because when I turn off the sympathetic system and turn on the parasympathetic, my physical body is demanding less of my spiritual body, the vitality that is connecting both, and thus myself, the spirit. Sometimes I say, I'm tired because the body's pulling me. And there is actual gravity, right? And we are enveloped by the perispirit. And the perispirit is semi-matter. Part of it is matter. So it's still under the laws of our planet. It pulls us down. So when I learn how to take a nap and a break, I emancipate, recharge, my body recharges, come back, continues the day. I'm gonna be more productive. Learning how to have that quiet moment. So interesting because when we're kids, little kids, they go to school and they learn to take that nap after lunch. They learn. Majority of them do it naturally. And then we lose that ability. But that's kind of a shame because scientifically it is proved that we need that break. It doesn't need to be 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. But for adults, even 10, 15 minutes can be enough for us to turn off the stress system and turn on the relaxation, demanding less. So that's something that the body needs. And finally, we're talking about the exercise for the body. Now, for the perispirit, in similar terminology, we need the same. And what do we need? Affection. Love is everything. But where's love, Vanessa? The divine plasma? We breathe in love, and we are not aware of it. We're immersed. Chapter 1 of the book Evolution into Worlds, Part 1. We're immersed in the divine plasma as fish in the ocean. So you and I are immersed in this loving, universal, cosmic fluid that not only is connected to perispirit body, but it's mind. It's about feeling, nourishing ourselves deeply to sustain ourselves in health. And then Andre Luiz says that the higher spirits mastering these multidimensional levels of ourselves, they know how to manage their emotions, their spiritual vibrations, inner discipline. We didn't know. Now we know. What else does he say? Continuing on the text and the slides. He says, the soul will only channel its affection in the circuit of forces in which she competes with the one that is associated, or in noble services, through which the soul operates the evasion of magnetic charges of her genesic impulses, transferring them to work where they project their sensibility and intelligence. Andre Luiz here is telling us many things. Part 1, he's repeating some things he has said before. That when we are at a more noble level, we channel that affection towards the ones whom we are connected, right? We're not promiscuous any longer. In other terms, he's talking about loyalty, faithfulness, exactly. Plus, he's also talking about channeling that affection, that emotion to noble services and transmuting, sublimating the magnetic load of our reproductive system. So he's talking about sex. Yes, he's talking about the sexual force, channeling it in a sublimated way to good causes. Expansion of the intellect and also of our sensibility. So here in this very paragraph or sentence, Andre Luiz is inviting us time and again, because this is not the first time that he says in this book. It's been a few chapters that he repeats. He says, you can control yourself. You can sublimate yourself. You can aim higher. You can transmute that reproductive, the sexual forces into good works, into loving causes. Homework for us. Where are we in that regard? Is it too hard for us to control ourselves sexually? Are we good at transmuting that willingness to exchange? We feel that load. What do? You repress? No. You see, he's also talking about no repression. Have you observed it? He says to us here that these noble souls, they do not repress. No, it's like a power plant that takes the force of the waters and channels it to transmute into electricity. So for us, no repression. The noble souls are not repressed. They are well managed. So we're being invited in this chapter to work with these forces that come, the creative forces that are in us, as we are co-creators, channel it to good causes. And rest assured, you're not alone. I'm not alone. Right? If you have any question, feel free to ask. He continues by telling us, this happens also in the physical plane, he says. Among those whose mental system, psychical system, is already sufficiently distanced from ordinary emotions, adjusting themselves on an ideal fluidic complementation as married soulmates. What is he talking about? Think about that expression, ordinary emotions. What are ordinary emotions, huh? Basic emotions? Exactly. What is science has a list of basic emotions, but super basic emotions, we say fear, anger, sadness, happiness or joy, uh, disgust or spite, etc. These are ordinary emotions, very ordinary emotions. And those that are related to our co-creative power. So that's something for us that is food for thought. Where are we regarding these ordinary emotions? Because often we dream of being in a noble union, expecting a noble partner. But where are we in our own nobility? According to the law of the mental field, I'm going to attract what I emit. If I want nobility, I need to push myself up to connect. So I'm being asked to do what Jesus has been telling us. Sublimate these ordinary emotions. And then I'm going to be able to adjust myself to an attunement with like-minded minds that are also aiming higher. Their dream is to do the good together, not to have sex together. Noble souls, their dream is not to have that beautiful afternoon when they have good sex, eat good food, and rest all day long. That is still ordinary. He's talking about higher. When the ecstasy comes, and he's going to talk about it here using the word euphoria, ecstasy. He's talking about when the ecstasy is aiming at helping others. Sunshine is saying, are these not feelings? Yes, they are. Emotions. It's interesting, Sunshine, because as a scientist myself in the neuroscience of emotions, it's when I read this chapter, I take my hat to Luiz, because in 1958, many of these terms were being worked out in psychology. Neurosciences was not even a field, a established field per se. It was coming along in medicine, but not exactly as it was. Neuroscience actually came about as a real field of study, a real one, uh, in the 1990s when we had the decade of the brain. That's when it really became a science in itself, a field in itself. So in 1958, when he uses this term emotion, he's really using terms that are very academic as well. So it's when we read and study these books, we can see how these spirits are really ahead of humanity. So when we're talking about feelings and emotions, we are on the same page. It's pretty much the same, just the terminology has a different wrapping because he's keeping the scientific terms true to the fields that were being studied. These chapters here are pretty much psychology, right? So here he uses the word fluidic complementation. So think about this. Sometimes we pass our eyes through this and we don't pay attention to elements that he's using here that tells us much more. He's talking about the ones who are spiritual spouses here, as he said in previous chapters, right? Spiritual spouses, which is chapter 9, we've studied together. He's saying there is what we call a complementation of fluids in super lay terms, energies. So complementation of their fluidic emanations. Fluidic here, according to Kardec in the book Genesis, chapters 13 and 14, because he repeats the use of the term quite often in both. So ideal, fluidic complementation, and that's why they feel good about being together. Because there is what the opposite, what we call it's like aversion. In this case, it's complementation. So it gives a pleasant feeling, a feeling of being together. Okay? Let's keep that in mind, the expression fluidic complementation. And this is something that makes us create some form of awareness to detect our relationships. Sometimes we cannot consciously figure it out. But we tell, pay attention to what you feel. Because sometimes we don't understand why this person makes us feel this way. But what is important is how we feel. Does it make me feel like life is easy? Easy in the sense like it flows? Or does it feel like restricted, compressed? And I have to tiptoe around that person. Because when we are around people who are like-minded, it flows, it's easy. I'm not saying we're evolved, but we're talking about affinity, in other words. Okay? In these simple paragraphs, Andre Luiz is addressing affinity. And he says, when death comes, and he says in a fancy way, interrupted by physical alliance in the carnal sphere, by interference of death, the man or the woman, consecrated in the intimate sublimation, are associated almost always with their partner taken by widowhood in constructive symbiosis of action, in order to support their children in need of assistance or in the extension of edifying works. The spirits who truly love one another do not abandon or forget each other or the other. Have you read, guys, the book The Messengers by Andre Luiz? Chapters 33 to 39 onwards, we have the case of a woman who is a widow, and she is very dedicated. She does the God at home or the gospel at home with her children. And in the description by the Andre Luiz, we have the very case that he's describing here of that spouse, the husband, who discarnated and comes back not only on that day of the God at home, but also continues assisting her and the family in their progress on the earth, because they are on the same page. Is that a rule? Only for souls that are aiming higher. So we're talking here about noble souls, more noble souls. And when you read the chapters, you're going to see that the God at home that they do, though in a small house, simple, the description is that during the God at home, her house becomes an outpost. Spirits that are in need of help are brought by the higher spirits, and higher spirits can find in her house uh, a station for rest, since they are working in the crust of the earth, which is still very dense, and they need homes. They have that superior um, vibration to be a repose for them in between tasks. So they don't need to go back, because Andrea Luiz shows how much it takes for us to do the trip. It's not about time, but it's about the quality and the intensity of the fluidic environment around us, right? The messengers. I'm going to write it here so we keep that in mind. The Messengers by André Luiz through Chico Xavier. Here we have the book. Keep that in mind. It's showing right there for you. So we keep in mind, and let me go back to the slides while you're seeing this. He also used the term symbiosis. Symbiosis. He uses the term symbiosis to make us understand what happens to both. He says constructive, because when we study the chapter on symbiosis, we're talking about paraspiritual connections that feed each other off, benefiting both. So in this case, it's a constructive symbiosis. There are constructive symbioses in which No one takes anything from the other but feeds each other, nourishing one another. There's no loss, only gain. And then the next one. Attentive to the same principle of improvement, those who adjust themselves in superior matrimony in the superior planes exchange their energies in constant energy circuit, whereby they attain vast honorable work in the mental creation of needed values for the common progress, in permanent euphoria that love provides to them. What is he saying? He's saying what we saw in the previous slide. In this symbiosis, this commonality, in this exchange, the fluidic exchange for the common tasks, they are aiming higher together, the improvement of both and the family and the universal family. So they exchange energies constantly as they aim at this noble, honorable work in the mental creation of needed values for the common progress. So let us keep that in mind, friends, because these expressions here are not in vain. How do you feel when Andrea Luiz is saying this? Is it almost like fairy tale for you? And I'm asking you this because when we talk about low, difficult things, it's so easy for us to understand because it's what we live daily, right? But when he's talking about this next level, it almost feels like intangible. It's like I cannot touch. Oh my gosh. Right? So quintessence. But he's only revealing what is at our reach, or we wouldn't be able even to understand what he says. So he says, because both are paying attention, aiming at the same goal, which is progress. So in your relationship, whomever you have a relationship nowadays, are you aiming higher, or is it just material maintenance? Because majority of people on earth have families, and I say this kindly, like animals. Animals have families too, and that's noble, but they are not even aware. For animals, it's okay. Being unaware of their family gathering, they have no consciousness, but we do. And now we're learning. What for? You don't have a family so you can send your children to college. That's not the goal. You don't have a family to have a good house. That's not the goal. It's the means, but not the goal. The goal is higher. And if both spouses don't aim at that level, we're going to struggle. And we're going to be at risk of sinking. Right, Rudy? It's a fantastic material. I agree with you. Andrea Luiz it's a breakthrough in the science of the spirits. And he says, both are aiming at the same principle of progress. And he says, and they are exchanging energies for the honorable work. And they use their mental capacity to acquire the needed values to aim at the general good. And for such reason, they find the ecstasies that only love provides. And he's not even talking about sex. Sex in the sense of physical exchange. He's talking about the true creative forces that is channeled for higher purposes. So it's very sad when people take a spirit at the level of Jesus and project their animality, their primitivism, putting down like Dan Brown, and claim that Jesus had a relationship just to make him look just like us. I'm not against, but my opinion doesn't count. The spirits never revealed that he had a company here on earth. Why? Because his role was higher than this. But is it possible? I don't know. But not on earth. He's not of the earth. Jesus is not a terrestrial spirit. Think about it. Is he an extraterrestrial spirit? Yes. The true ET? Yes. Big deal. It's the universe is our home, right? So Jesus is not of the earth. He helped create the planet Earth in the name of God. So he is out of the earth. And it's surprising to us when we talk about extraterrestrial things in Spiritism. And people are like, oh my gosh, people are talking about ETs. Well, but there are many spirits, including Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, whom we know are not of the earth. They came from other galaxies. We're talking about the exile. And Dr. Bezerra de Menezes is one of them. Not of the earth, but loves the earth. And gives their life. They all give their lives for the earth. But the ultimate model, Jesus. And the happiness. And why are we reinforcing joy here? Because Jesus said, I come to bring you good news. I come to bring you the good news that bring you joy, hope, and courage. So it is possible to tame our most ordinary forces, sublimate them, and channel for higher works that benefit more. So that's our challenge. Next time we feel the urge, challenge yourself. Do what Chico Xavier used to do and what Divaldo Franco does. We have a video at the SSB where he says that he learned from Chico, learned from Emmanuel, talking to the physical cells and recruiting them like a good commander, that we channel all that capacity to higher works that benefit more. So my ecstasy is not kept for myself only. I can radiate it, and when I connect, we can feel what he calls the euphoria here. It's beyond it. Mind-blowing. It's so mind-blowing that we seem like crazy talking about it. But this is Andre Luiz. It's not me. Right? Let's go on and see what else he has to say, because he has two more things to tell us. Two more. And when their company is missing, the companion is missing. Sorry, not their company. What is this company about? Isn't that funny? Super typo here. That's good. We are on earth. Living on earth, right? We are children of God. We are children of God, and I'm changing the slide not to make us confused. And because I broke down the sentence here to make us study more easily, here we have, and when their companion is missing, meaning discarnated, through whom they integrate in the highest ideals of beauty and careful work, they mobilize their own magnetic work in service of the community with which they rise more intensively on the scale of moral sublimation. Okay, pay attention to the words. Let us pay attention. He's talking about spiritual spouses aiming at the same direction, and one is separated from the other. Chapter 9, we already studied that. It happens. One has to do some work here and the other one there. So the other one needs to recruit all that magnetic work, meaning that creative force, channel to the service of the general good, the community. May we challenge ourselves here? Next time you say, I'm all alone, I don't have a family. Read this chapter and say, come on, come on. Who is your family? It's in the gospel according to Spiritism. When Jesus was talking to the disciples, and his family and brothers were coming towards him, and the disciples said, your mother and your brothers are here. And he said, but who is my mother and my brothers? But those who fulfill the will of my Father, meaning the universal family. What do we need to do to feel that we owe to the universal family? That we cannot wake up and sleep each day. We cannot skip a day without thinking, oh my gosh, there's somebody here who needs me. Today, I'll give an example. Mentor Joseph teaching us. Your guardian angel is teaching you. Mentor Joseph is teaching us too. He says, today, yes, I had to stop at some point to do my nails because I needed to do it. I did some laundry the other day and messed up. I said, I need to do my nails. Found some time, squeezed in, and I stopped by at the nail salon. The woman said, oh, can you come back in 15 minutes? At first, I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And then I asked myself, well, maybe I need to do something in between. Let me take the car. Mentor Joseph, is there something that I can do? He said, yeah, drive around because there is a homeless around. And he was right. There was a homeless that was seated in the parking lot. I didn't see him before. And he said, don't give him money, but he's hungry. Go there, buy a sandwich, and just stop and humbly. You don't say anything, Vanessa. You just say, excuse me, can I offer you a sandwich? And he even told me the type of sandwich that the man likes, which I couldn't believe because it's not exactly the one that I like. But I said, okay, I will believe in you. And it was a good sandwich, of course. And then I stopped the car. And I confess to you, I was a little skeptical in some ways. I was like, I don't know, but it's cold. And he looks like he's hungry. So I said, excuse me, sir. May we offer you a sandwich? He said, oh, please, thank you very much. He stopped, opened, and started eating. At that moment, my friends, it broke my heart because sometimes we're so encapsulated in our little realities, in our comfort, that we lose sight that maybe a few steps away there is somebody who is suffering, and I don't need to take a plane and go to Africa, but it's right here. Of course, if you go to Africa, it's good to help the Fraternity Without Borders or other organizations. But we're saying right here and now, there are people who are suffering, and I don't know why they're there. But the man opened like I've never seen before. He opened the bag and started eating a sandwich. And this is when the good spirits are training us, like Andrea Luiz, saying, do not go your day without paying attention to the universal family. We need to aim higher. These chapters here may sound weird, but they are coaching us to the next level. It's not even angelic, huh? It's just a noble humanity. We're still working at our humanity level. Now, Andrea Luiz is pushing us to noble humanity. Exactly. Right? Finally, Andrea Luiz brings us more. Moreover, the spiritual spouses frequently try to forget their own possibilities of higher ascension, soliciting humble and hidden positions at the steps of those that they devote themselves to in order to help in executing the work that was assigned to them, or in the payment of debts that they hold before the natural law. So he's saying the original question was, what is the affective behavior between noble souls, right? The couple of spiritual spouses. They not only channel their um, creative forces to the common good, but they also may forget, they say, about their own ascension and stay in lower levels to help do the work that was assigned to them, or in payments of debts that they held before the natural law. Is this the case of Bezerra de Menezes? Yes. Bezerra de Menezes, when he discarnated as Dr. Bezerra de Menezes in Brazil, the doctor of the poor, the spiritist missionary, he was invited by Mother Mary to ascend and go to another level, not a galaxy, not a planet. And he humbly said, if I may, I'd like to stay here and continue helping the planet Earth. So next time you think of Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, you think of him, to say the least, as this noble soul, like Eurípides Barçanufo, Joana de Ângeles, that are aiming higher. They live their lives to helping us. And why are you feeling lonely? Why are you not believing in yourself? Why? If these spirits are daily working for the benefit of ours, for our own benefit, so we can achieve, and their goal is solely one. They don't want a promotion. That's not their goal. They're not helping us because they want a promotion. They're helping us because they got it. We're co-creators, and our goal is to fulfill God's will, and God's will is the same for all. Love for all. So, spreading love, loving unconditionally, is the goal of all goals. This is the chapter on the affective conduct, training us to higher levels. As we learn how to manage our own creative forces in the physical and the spiritual bodies, commanding that magnetic load to be channeled in sublimation to higher tasks, exactly, and on the same in the same direction, thinking, the spiritual spouses thinking in the same direction, aiming the common good. That's the proposal. And that's the invitation for us all today. This is it for today. Tomorrow, when we come back, Andrea Luiz is going to talk about another chapter. It's going to talk about the sex differentiation. What is it all about? Come back and see, because we're talking about the evolution of our spiritual body, the evolution of ourselves in two worlds, permeating the evolution of our emotions, the evolution of our spiritual intelligence, and the body being the internship that we need to expand those capacities. Thank you so much, friends. May God bless us all, and may we expand our loving capacity more and more in the next 24 hours. A big hug to you, and until tomorrow, God willing.